Welcome everyone to our session about sustainable building in Europe, and I'm very happy to introduce the participants or panel discussion participants of today. I think you just noticed, we're missing Bruno Sauer, the CEO of the Spanish GBC, but as I always make fun of him, it's a different time zone in Spain. We have with us as well Mette Qvist. She's the CEO of the Danish Green Building Council. And then we have with us, sorry, now my system is down, from Croatia, the chair of the board of directors from the Croatian Green Building Council, and actually one of our newest system partner, Vlasta Tanki. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Sorry for the delay.
Yeah.
So maybe to get started, maybe with a little impression from your side. I said it when we had this opening this morning. I said it's always so good and so valuable to discuss with our international partners, because the discussion here in Germany is in the world, and we just have all these challenges about how to get people on board, how much does it cost, and all that. So maybe Mette, to start off with you, your perspective, how have things been going in Denmark? Is it really so different? I mean, is it something that you just sit around and everyone is happy to participate and get on the topic of sustainable buildings? Or what is your impression? How is the market evolving, and what are your biggest maybe challenges in the area?
Yeah, well, I think we are very close to you Germans. I mean, just a neighboring country. So there might be quite a lot of similarities, as we usually also talk about when we have our meetings, Christine. And then, of course, there also, being a small country, perhaps things that can go a little faster. I would say the situation now, having worked now for my own case, next week, 10 years with Green Building Council Denmark, I would say the last 2 years is amazingly different from the first 8 years. So I had this I give this perspective. We spent around 10 years certifying 100 buildings, and now 1.5 years, our pipeline is around 500. So that's one way of measuring, well, how are things going? Now they're moving really, really fast. Is it fast enough? You can ask. No, because we are not ambitious enough, but everybody, I would say, you can't be in the construction industry in Denmark without knowing you have to do something and you have to start doing things differently. And that's thanks a lot to our founding partners, members, and so on, who started this up when everybody else thought that we were a little crazy. So thanks to Europe now, to the EU and so on, to the politicians, they're coming on board now. It's really a different picture. And just to finalize, in the beginning, what we sort of, and you know probably also from the German side, we actually promoted our activities by higher quality in buildings. Well, and that's, you know, where the investors started getting interested in this. And now it's about CO2, it's about biodiversity, it's about all these really essential topics, circular economy. But it started with higher quality, and now it's moving in that direction. Yeah.
Yeah, my God, already 10 years. I remember when I came, you know, when the decision, I mean, the Danish GBC basically made the decision to adapt the DGNB system because before the council was officially founded. And I remember with the founders meeting, like in an office space from a company and discussing all that. And it was quite challenging as well for us because, you know, there were a lot of detailed questions. And 10 years ago, we were very busy, as we are still today, but then, and another level building the system. So I'm very happy. And I always refer to Denmark, you know, when people ask me, because I think once, like what you just explained, I mean, it was like a startup phase, but now it's happening very systematically and on a very wide scale. So maybe, Vlasta, going to you, the Croatian GBC is, compared to what the Danish GBC was back then, a much more mature GBC. You've been around for many years. I know the GBC is doing a lot of as well work with the ministry. How do you see this topic of sustainable buildings evolving in Croatia, or maybe even a little bit in the region?
Yeah, hello to everyone, and thank you for inviting me for this panel. So, as you said, Croatian Green Building Council actually established in 2009, so we are like 13 years old. And as our Danish colleague says, we had a lot of problems in the beginning because no one understood what we are talking about. We were some sort of activist, and actually I joined the management board of the GBC like 2013, so I'm there like for 9 years, and I have really long experience what was going on from this management level. We were a small team, only maybe 1, 2, 3 employees for many years, and then now we started growing like 3-4 years ago, and now we are quite mature GBC, I would say, and office. But and we have more like 100 members in Croatia at the moment. Regarding the buildings, well, and sustainability, if you ask me what do we have in Croatia, I would say we have some sustainable green buildings, but I would say that there are results on investor willingness and to make a difference, and some vision of the architects, because we didn't have any proof of sustainability for these kind of buildings. What we know and what is established in Croatia, it's energy certification for like 2010-11, and I could say that actually for like last 10 years we were learning what is energy certification. But I think we passed these lessons, and actually it's time to move on and to let's do some other steps that we are actually now really running at the moment. And regarding the sustainable buildings and some other green building certification, since we didn't have any official measure of sustainability for established for like a green Croatian green certificate, we were trying to, through GBC, we were trying to promote international green certification. It was DGNB, it was LEED, BREEAM, but in 10 years we had only 10 certified buildings. But some things are changing now, and actually I could say that EU directives, since we are the EU member states, and EU directives, different one, energy efficiency and energy performance of buildings, actually let's say put the way how it will be, since we have to build NZEM buildings, and I think that we won't have problems in the future with the new built buildings, since let's say regulations are quite strict, and it will be stricter in the future. But what will be the real challenge? It's existing buildings and how to make these buildings more sustainable. And regarding our corporation, I think I can say a little bit later, but we start really huge steps for us. It's that we became the GMB system partner, and this is something that we will really work more in the future. But just to say a little bit, just to mention what Mette already mentioned somehow, what happened at 2019 with the Green Deal. Actually, it was the huge push and really some breaking point actually for any energy efficiency measures and for any green technologies. And actually 2021 was also 1 year that actually made the change, definitely, and something, let's say it's broken. All the way of thinking is broken and something new is coming. So it will not be so difficult in the future to build, I would say, green buildings and do some energy certification.
Okay, thank you. And just in time, welcome, Bruno. I was already making fun of the Spanish time understanding. And I said that you're very happy in Spain with the DGNB system. You're a big fan. So basically, no. We just started off with a perspective maybe on how the market has been evolving over the years. And because I said in the beginning, you know, in Germany, the discussions, especially on the political level, are always a little bit like we're alone in the world and no one else has the same challenges as we are. So maybe from your perspective, you've been with the Green Building Council many years already, being very active in that field. Do you see a change? Do you see that the market is evolving? Does it get easier to get people on board and good buildings renovated or new constructed?
Well, I can see that in general, if you speak about sustainability, the market is really picking up the whole message, and I think it's in about 2 years that we can see in different aspects that sustainability really is understood as something, the only way to walk. So in that sense, I think that's a very interesting, clear message. Now, if you speak about certification, I think Spain is a very singular country, at least into the European context, that there exists certification systems since, I think, 20 years or 15 years or something like that. But it is still a top level of the market who is certifying. It is still a certain kind of niche. And we are trying with GBC to bring that to another context, in the sense that trying to help real estate investors and promoters first to understand, to training why they have to measure and why they have to certify, and then little by little bringing them straightly to the certification action. No? There are many systems present in Spain. We always said we need a European vision on certification, so we don't want to have let's say American or with different cultural background look to certification. That's why we also signed an agreement with DGNB 2019. Well, what I can perceive is that with the push of Europe, with the whole structure of levels, the taxonomy, the DGNB system completely aligned with that, many people are moving from one system to another. Now it is going slow, but I hope that taxonomy is going to give us a small push, since that the financial sector is now understanding that you have to certify, and the fact that they go together somewhere now. I mean, you do a DGNB certification and you have directly an input from the taxonomy. I think that's something that's going to give us a big help the coming months and years, just to make clear that if you don't measure, you don't know what you can do better in the future, and you need instruments for doing that. And both going for the certification as an end value, as using the certification system as a methodology for designing, I think they're two very important aspects in the market.
Yeah, you mentioned already, maybe that's a good point as well to get a European perspective on, because this whole sustainable finance taxonomy in Germany, at least, then we have the ESG topic, environmental social governance, where we see that you have basically two parts of the market. One is, to maybe be a little bit mean, is kind of hyperventilating because they're completely shocked that all of a sudden they have to provide data and information and really show transparency. And then there's the other part of the market who's like, yeah, we've been doing that already, or we're already on the path. So how do you see this whole sustainable finance movement, taxonomy, call it ESG, from your respective markets? I don't know, Mette, is that a big driver? Do you have the same, that for some it's like really a big surprise and they feel like it's completely new? Or, since I already said that the Danish are so structured, is that someone where the market has been prepared for?
Oh, yeah. Of course, it's always nice and flattering, but structure, I don't know. But I would say that what has happened in a structured way has been the pension funds. They were the first part looking at this as this is what we need to deal with, and we need to get data on board and so on, and a certification is both helping us in a quality way and also collecting relevant data. So that part of the sector has really pushed and been very systematical in helping us then to get data for the whole market. And now we see the first movers are really happy, of course, because the direction they went into fits completely well with the taxonomy. And then And then of course we have like the rest of you. Then there are the banks. Whoa, what's happening? We need to look at this in the building sector and investments and loans and so on. And there I see really a lot of need for what kind of data do we need? Is it good enough to have these energy marks? Wow, no. By the way, sustainability is something more than just these energy marks that will not push or transform or anything at all. So we really see the general financial market with banks and loan givers and so on. We have a special credit system in Denmark. They are now catching up, but they were not on board because they were not investing directly in buildings, but out there. So that's what's moving now, where the taxonomy is helping us further.
And
then
from your side, Bruno, sorry.
No. And the last thing about system and being systematical, the good thing about what happened here, and I can say that because that's before my time, is that we chose one certification system. We said, and we established an analysis based on the 4 most international approaches. We agreed, or the Danish Construction Society agreed, such a small country, let's look at what's happening out internationally, and let's pick the most ambitious and the best and the most circular approach, which then was DGNB. And that has been really great in looking at a system, because we see now, yes, of course, there are some different ways to do it, but in this market, the moment you have more than one, it actually creates confusion. So it's and by having one in the beginning here, and now we also have the SWAN, the Nordic SWAN, and so on. But having one in the beginning as a certification, international certification, has also done that. It's not only pension funds, but also social housing and so on. When they look at sustainability, they look at the DGNB criteria, and that moves the whole system. And that's what we need. We need to do this in a scalable way.
But yeah, before I go to Bruno, but do you feel this is a bit a discussion we're having at the moment? Like I said, we have this ESG discussion, environmental, social governance, at least environment and social. We're like, yeah, it's nothing new, but it feels like for some people, it's like a new headline. It's completely new. And there's this sport of reinventing the wheel again and again. Do you need in Denmark as well to do a lot of explanation to explain to people this is not something completely new, this is already covered by the DGNB system? Or is there more openness to understand there's already an instrument on the market, let's use that?
Yeah, I mean, we always need to explain, and sometimes you think, well, I've been saying the same things for 10 years, but there's always explaining that's needed, and also because we've tried to do it in an easy way. You can say, okay, we would like DGNB this and that level, and then somebody else deals with it, but then you actually don't know, well, what are the values behind, and some things that you actually need to be aware of as an investor or as a construction company. So there is the explanation behind that's constantly needed, and also the fact this is dynamic. This is not just, okay, well, we can save you and we save the planet, you have a certification, everybody's happy. This is okay, this is the knowledge we have until now. And this is something we actually have to explain now quite a lot. We're not looking at planetary boundary because we don't have that information yet, but we know what we're doing because we have benchmarks that it's better than the average, but we're not close to saving the planet yet. So that constantly needs to be told.
Yeah, I think that's good. We're not done saving the planet. Is I think a good motto. Bruno, from your side, how has is there as well an ESG dynamic in Spain, or is it more the taxonomy, or is it, yeah?
Well, there is an ESG item going on, discussed, debated in our sector nowadays, but it maybe started ago or 8 months ago. I mean, it's very, very recent. I think in part it's the taxonomy who put it all into discussion. There was something interesting last week. I was in Lisbon. I was invited by the National Association for Valuers, who were putting a value on a building. It was an international congress. They invited me to speak about taxonomy and ESG. And the interesting thing was that, first of all, the world of people who are valuing buildings, they are absolutely not interested in looking to the future. They just look to the moment. What's the value of a building on this moment? So everything what's sustainable development with climate change adaptation, with the performance of a building, that is something they are not going to take into account, or not. They don't know how to take into account. But on the other hand, on the table and on the discussion table, there was also people from the banking sector. And they are completely convinced. They are completely ready to implement all these things. And then on a certain moment, we started saying, yeah, it's not just the cost of a building or the price when you buy or sell a building, it's about value. And if you speak about value, you have to look to sustainability on the long term. So in that moment, you start really connecting what is taxonomy on the moment with an ESG to the future as a value, because then you enter into the whole governance discussion. And the governance discussion is not just me as an enterprise investing in real estate, it is me as an enterprise giving the guarantee in the future that the buyer or the person who rents keeps on having a value with his building. You know? And that's I think a discussion for the coming years. I think as a GBC we should facilitate the discussion. I think it will be very difficult to certify ESG because we are just focused on the asset, on the product. We are not focused on the enterprise behind the asset. But I think we have knowledge and criteria to be an important player in the discussion. So in that sense, I think taxonomy is something we should enlarge with new criteria, with new indicators. The whole social aspects are very, very important, and I think they're still not completely on place. I think there's still quite a lot of margin to improve. Yeah, the taxonomy and the financial discussion is something hot on this moment. So yes, it is going on in Spain. We are working on that. I think into the context of CEPIA, I think that's the perfect European context to work on it. And DGNB as a basis system of calculating impacts and understanding the value of sustainability, I think that's a perfect match.
May I pose a question from the audience that fits perfectly into the taxonomy and the ESG theme? Brigitta Kirule-Wixne asks, how do the countries approach the sustainable finance and taxonomy conformity evidence? And does DGNB and do her sisters have further going plans to get European Central Bank to acknowledge the ESG verification as a valid proof?
Who wants to answer that quite complex question?
I would like to hear a summary of the question.
I can at least start a little here that we definitely see a strong interest from pension funds, investors, and so on, then that when they get their certification, their DGNB certification, they also have a taxonomy compliant from our side. So that's what we're developing together with DGNB in Stuttgart and Bruno and so on, the rest of the partners. So it's definitely from the market. There's an interest that we do both. I don't think it's what's completely the answer, but it's to give a flavor of what's happening here. Of course, there will be interest in just getting the taxonomy and not certification, but we actually see also in building and use, there's also an interest because in the certification and taxonomy. And as we know from our report we made with our partners, that actually when you have a certification, the taxonomy comes very easily and is very fast to do.
Yeah, maybe as a info, we have founded together the Climate Positive Europe Alliance, and through that European organization we as well offer taxonomy compliance checks or verifications, as we call it. So and all the info is on the website, so I think everyone who's interested can look there as well. We have some more questions in the chat. I will get to that in a minute, but first I wanted to get Vlasta's perspective on the driver through sustainable finance from your perspective. And it feels like, I don't know, at least in Germany, it doesn't feel like people are looking too much to Europe or taking it so seriously sometimes what comes out of Europe. What is your take on that or your perspective?
Well, we are looking very much what is coming from Europe. We want to implement what is, I would say, necessary and mandatory, and I don't know, what should be good for us at least. It depends in the professional sense and some other investor sense. But I would just go back with Croatian GBC that I just started mentioning from in the previous talk, that actually we were thinking for the last 5 years which kind of green certificate we would like to have. We wanted to have something like Croatian one. We wanted to develop our own, but we failed many times because we didn't have actually funding and actually human resources, technical funding to pay the technical resources to develop something Croatian. That's why last year we decided together with DGNB and with the help of Austrian colleagues from OGNI, actually to go for DGNV. We were discussing about a different certificate, but that's why we became system partner, because we were aware that actually it's the time that we have to have something, and this is a huge step for GBC, and we felt on the market that actually something very, very soon. Regarding the drivers, because as I said, for the last 12 years, we had 10 certificates, and now at the moment we just signed a contract with becoming a system partner and start implementing DGNB. We already have 6 applied building who will go for certification. So it happened only in 5 months. So I think the things are changing and happening. It will happen very fast. And we have many other projects that are, I don't know, somehow in a pipeline. So what was the driver? For example, first one who actually apply for the DGNB green certificate, it was the company who owns different office buildings, and actually who issued green bonds last year. And actually the drive for them was actually they have their sustainability policy that they will have 100% of their square meters they want to have certified according to green certification. In Croatia it's now DGNB, and they start doing it that way. So they start with the new buildings that they are building now, and they will do with the building in use. So actually the money was actually the drivers and the better financing that they can get for their investment projects. Other investor was the one who is also, it's international, and actually who wants to build some tourist complex who will be green one, because green is something that became popular. And besides these drivers, unfortunately drivers are, I'm talking for in this topic, energy efficiency, green and green buildings and different sustainability topics for many years. And actually what was my experience, that only money was driver at the end. Payback period of such buildings for someone who is owning the buildings. And also now we have this change in energy prices, and this is something that is a huge driver to build green buildings, and the buildings who will spend less during the life cycle. And of course, all these topics and new certificates that are coming, that we want to have CO2 neutral, something that we don't know maybe how to calculate at the moment. But this is something that more and more investors interesting in this topic, and they are aware that they heard maybe a little bit for taxonomy, they heard they can get better financing, but they are not so much aware about reporting at the moment. But they know that they have to do something, because they will sell their products easier if they have some sort of green certificate. So they will get better money, they'll spend less money for energy in the future, and they will easier sell their properties. So it's some sort of, unfortunately, about money, but of course we have to do a lot about awareness. And what was the problem about awareness? That people are not citizens, and many are not aware that all these things that we are talking about has to do with them. It's something that has to do with politicians, it has to do something with some investors, but people do not think about this climate change and actions that we all have to do something. So this sort of changing awareness and behavior is something crucial in the future, because someone who is buying an apartment wants to buy the better apartment and green apartments, I would say.
Okay, thank you. So we have some more questions in the chat before I get to them. I mean, there's a very technical question. I'm not sure, Mette, it goes directly to you. The question is about certification at fundamentally unsustainable construction land. I'm not sure what that is, but Lindetholm, outside of Copenhagen, did I pronounce?
Yeah.
So does it? Yeah, I guess it means something to you. Maybe quick.
It rings
I don't know anything about it, but
yeah. It's actually a very political question, and it's about an island, an artificial island that has been decided politically to build outside Copenhagen. And in the beginning, it was about, because most part of the city of Copenhagen is actually underneath the level of the water. So it makes a lot of sense then to do, to have a climate protection. And then at the same time, there's so much, like in all the other large cities in Europe, there's a lot of influx to the large cities. It's growing. Everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people want to live in Copenhagen. So this island also then has several purposes, both climate protection and also to build residential buildings. And then there's a great question, well, how sustainable is this? It's and do we actually have measures to evaluate this? And some people, being very much against it, have then put forward their case to the EU court, and I think they lost the first part, because there is a sense what is happening today is you actually cut a project in small pieces, and can you actually support that when it's this huge island on its own? And then look at the project in different ways, or should you look at it in its entire purpose? And to my understanding, there hasn't been made any LCA, consequential LCA, and so on. When we start asking these questions, we haven't heard about it. So so you can say it's very debatable, the sustainability about these initiatives. On the other hand, you know, and you all know that because you're working with this every day as well. You can also ask, well, how sustainable is it to build all these housing areas, suburbs and so on, with infrastructure, with one single family houses and so on? This we are still lacking real good measures. The debate is important, but we also need to think of, we need housing for these people, and the population of Denmark is growing, and we want and a lot of people want to live in cities. But it's a very good question, and with a lot of answers.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a question I think we all sooner or later already maybe face, and I think this is as well something we need to discuss amongst us, because we have the same discussion here in Germany. And my take is always, the DGNB system, it's an instrument. it's a tool, but we're not taking over all responsibilities. That would be a different role, where we would be like thumb up, thumb down. You can certainly, you're allowed to or you're not. This is not how we started that transformation process, but that's definitely something maybe we need to be clearer and more transparent about it, because this is somehow mixed up. And I think, you know, the responsibility always stays with the people and with the decision makers. And but if they want to hand it over to us, then we have to discuss on how to handle. I'm always happy if I can make decisions, but I'm not sure if then they will like the decision they get. But I think this is a wider discussion.
Yeah, and you can easily, like you say, you can easily, and we've seen examples of that. Okay, we'll use the DGNB certification, and then we're home free. Yeah. And it might be a project, you know, on a field where you think, why on earth are you building a new suburb there?
Yeah, but I think the certification is not, I don't know how to say it in English, in the Catholic Church, like this absolution, you know, this kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, then you're home free.
Yeah. So we have one question, but I would like to maybe have that as a last round. There's a question: how can we support outside of Europe, like in countries of the global South? Africa was named here, to maybe cut the learning curve. So, but before we come to that, I would like to get one round of impression, because now we talked a lot about sustainable finance and taxonomy, and I always think, and I always tell people, this is not a surprise. That was announced, that was coming for years. It was clear, it's already part of the Paris Agreement, the topic of sustainable finance. And I think this is the challenge we're facing, that basically we have very long time spans. So if a building that is completed today, that was design started maybe 4, 5, 6 years ago, depending on what it is. And what is being designed now, sure, has different measures. So a big part of what we all do is as well to see what is next. So maybe from your perspective, now we have like sustainable finance somehow coming into the market. Where are you with other topics? We have, like in Germany, we're now starting biodiversity as a big topic. We announced circular economy a few years back. What are kind of future topics, or topics where you say, people watch out, this will be next? So if you design or renovate a building today, you would be smart to minimize the risk, maybe to look at these kind of topics. I don't know who wants to, maybe Bruno wants to go first. What is like the next big thing in Spain from your perspective?
Well, I think it's not a question of next big thing in Spain, because I think Spain is always looking a little bit to the rest of Europe to understand what's coming. But in Green Building Council Spain, yes, we are discussing on quite a lot of topics for the future. Personally, I like to make the reference always to the recent study of Johan Rockström and the Resilience Institute of Research Institute Stockholm, with the 9 limits to our planet, in which it's clearly shown that biodiversity is one of the biggest problems that we have in our planet, and it is something that the building sector is hardly trying to solve or to take responsibility. I think there's a question of responsibility. Cities, infrastructure, the building sector, construction. I think we have a huge responsibility in that item, and we don't work it. But it's not because the Scientists Institute is saying it that the society is prepared to understand it, and even less that our sector is willing to work on it. So there are huge work to be done before we really can consider that as a hot item. I think it will be very difficult, because nobody's winning with biodiversity. It's not like the financial stuff with suddenly economical benefits and loss are completely linked with sustainability. With biodiversity, it's not the case. So biodiversity, for sure, it is one of these items. Air quality, I think that's another big item, because it's related to health and well-being. And then personally, I've always been working on how can we have a deeper look on renovation of cities, not just rehabilitation of buildings. I think we are in a moment that European cities should dare to really do deep renovation as an urban issue, in which you really are thinking on how do you introduce much more greening. What's the relation between building and public space? How can we generate energy in one place and benefit it in another place? How do you work with flood problems and water problems on an urban scale, instead of trying to solve it always with these green roofs, which are very nice and very interesting, but at the end, very small spots in the city to solve it. So I think we should have a look to the larger scale to solve global problems. Adaptation to climate change, which is in levels, which in the taxonomy, I think as long as you don't touch the urban scale, you're not really working on adaptation to climate change. So it's the small scale of the building is too little to have big impact. So for me, 3 big items: biodiversity, air quality, and the city scale. And then there is a 4th element, which is not new, which is circular economy, which is already for 10 or 20 years a debate, and I think nobody is really hitting the glue. I mean, nobody. And so it's not really making progress. It's not really being implemented. It's not really something. I don't see when it will be a normal thing. Why don't we have to keep on insisting in presentations that we should go to a circular system? I mean, we are saying that already for 20 years, and it is not happening. So that I don't see the solution over there. That's concern. But if I have a desire, it would be urban scales, biodiversity, and air quality.
Okay, maybe quick answer because we're kind of out of time. Mette, from your side, circular economy is a big topic in Denmark.
I must say that's where it's also great to meet with European colleagues here, because we're very aligned with what you're saying, Bruno. It's very much what I also see here. Biodiversity. It's a tough one. We're lacking how to measure and so on. There's circular economy. It's because the whole way we work on things and risk adverse. What did you say? Attitudes and so on really is stopping it. So it's also what we're seeing. Renovation. It's so great to see that the companies being proud about staying in the same headquarter, renovating instead of demolishing, moving to somewhere new. It's a good story for when they acquire new people on board, when they're hiring young talents and so on. So definitely renovation will really be a focus. Existing buildings, how can we keep on improving what we're doing? And this is where we should, through DGNB, through our other ways of working together, learn from each other and learn from examples from each other. And then I would actually also say, I see the market here in Denmark. We have not a lot, but still some companies where their main purpose is they want to change the way we work in the industry. And these lighthouses companies should really help us out across borders and so on. And then, of course, also we have for various different also members and so on, the companies, they're just happy being in compliance and so on. But if we can unite these purpose-driven companies, people and so on that want to change the industry and across the borders, I think we can really make a lot happening. And what is also quite clear in Denmark is the politicians are looking to us because they can see, okay, we need this these people who are working, establishing a market before they come along with legislation.
Okay, I think that as well answered a little bit the Africa question. I think to learn from each other, to cut the learning curve. And but Vlasta, maybe last point statement from your side. What are the topics? I mean, you're working as well at the university, so
Yeah.
Where do you see?
Yeah, we are developing some new programs and so on. But let's say short-term topic in Croatia at the moment is deep reconstruction due to earthquake, and how to combine this earthquake structural reconstruction with the deep energy reconstruction. So this will be like the next couple of years. But what I think it's also the huge topic is how role of buildings. So we have to decarbonize the buildings, existing building stock. Role of the buildings in the decarbonization of the energy sector and the transport sector, because e-mobility and also the energy production of the place of the consumption, like prosumers, this is also a topic that we have to somehow include in the green buildings. It's not just material, we have to see how we can produce this energy on the spot. And of course, circular economy, smart grids, how to combine these smart cities with the e-mobility, carbon neutral industry, which is also more and more also, we have questions from some people who are building the new factories here in Croatia. So this is something that is ongoing. And actually a role of digitalization in the sense of decarbonization. So it's not just digitalization because of IT sector, but just how to make some energy savings, because we are introducing like a new software. For example, now we have this carbon footprint of this conference, much less than the 1,000 people actually came to Stuttgart, because I would like to come, but let's say carbon neutral much more than it will be. But yeah, there are a lot of topics, but more and more topics are interdisciplinary. So we have to combine all of them. It's not just one by one. We have to look at the system. System thinking is something that was missing for ages. You know, first we were thinking about the architects, civil engineers, mechanical engineers. They were working separately. Now we are putting them together. But now we have some more people who are actually on this thinking system that we have to implement.
Well, I think that's a good closing to what Bruno said about as well the city level, but as well the European system. So I think similar topic or even the same topics everywhere. And maybe just one before we close to the audience, the topic around resilience, the discussion already started. So you're not automatically being redirected. So if you want to leave us, you have to leave us now or wait a few minutes while we close. So thanks everyone for your contribution. Sorry if we couldn't answer all the questions from the chat. I would like to do one quick last thing, because there's always like the rational part to things, data, information, the content, but there's as well the emotional part and the communication part. And I know that the name DGNB doesn't really flow so well in your respective countries, and I know that you have some decisions. So I would like to ask you, in your own language, to how's DGNB pronounced in Spanish, in Danish, and in Croatian? So because this is something as well. Especially Bruno, you have to go ahead. I really like it when you say DGNB in Spanish.
When we say DGNB in Spanish, we say DGNB.
DGNB. Okay, Mette, how do you say it in Denmark?
Yeah. We have this, in Danish it's DGNB, and then we had this person who actually translated, well, things will go better. Things will probably go better. That's the Danish translation of DGNB.
In the Croatian, when you pronounce it.
Yeah, we just say it in English, DGNB. We are all the time saying in English, so...
Okay,
but today
maybe next year we'll have to do it the Spanish campaign, and we all say it like the Spanish people. So
DGNB. Sounds even more Arab a little bit. Yeah,
it's a part of the international strategy that we will, change how we pronounce it. So thanks a lot for all of you. Thank you to the audience for staying with us even a few more minutes, and see you soon.
Thanks for the invitation.
Bye. Bye.
Bruno, time management.
Yeah, we had a discussion on gender. We had a discussion on gender in society, so I couldn't leave that so easily. I'm so sorry.
Okay, then your excuse.
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.